everyone, and welcome to the 2-point conversion Monday Night Football pregame show here in Week 14. We are December 12th, 12/12. Alliterations are awesome. Isn't that right? Jet lag, John, promo pimp, Discord, Dan, B-League, blah. Hi. Hey, Dan.
Thomas the Tank Engine.
Thomas the Tank Engine. Right, yet another alliteration, yeah.
How are we? Feeling good?
Yeah, doing great.
I'm feeling about as good as a Baker Mayfield win on a Thursday night against the Raiders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, Doc.
Well, that about sums up. That about sums up how I'm feeling. Dealing with a little bit of bronchitis today, this past weekend. But I'm here because this is the time of the year where the proverbial rubber meets the proverbial road. So for all my friends out there in the audience, don't say when the memoirs of my fantasy career have been written, don't let it be said that the doc was not here for you when
he had bronchitis.
It's flu game. It's the doc flu game.
Staying up all night, whatever. I'm here for you. So it's playoff time. We're one game away from playoff season, so we got to make it. We got to make it happen. It's now or never.
Doc's playoff game. I love it. It's the flu game. We love it.
So the
flu game.
The advice will be even more solid than ever, as always, Doc.
I don't know. If I give bad advice today, I'm blaming it on the cold medicine.
Nice.
And always nice to have you on, Gladys, as well. How are you doing?
I have RG3 and Larry Fitzgerald on the TV, so life is good right now.
I was afraid you might say on your fantasy team. I was like, ooh, they might not score you many points. Yes, on TV is great. They're both very good-looking men. And
yeah, they are. Yeah,
they're probably way better than most of the Monday night people that are going to be talking anyway. So.
Oh, I mute it. I don't care what they say.
Fair enough. That's probably for the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't mute us here. In fact, if you want to chat with us, head over to the Going for Two Live YouTube page. So just head to YouTube, search up Going for Two Live. You should find that. Come join us live, and you can chat with us. We're also available to watch on Twitch, Facebook as well, and Twitter. But again, we encourage you to head over to the Going for Two YouTube page, subscribe, rate and review, thumbs up. Everything, feel free to comment and join again on the Going for Two Live YouTube page. And one last plug is the Going for Two.com or the Discord.com/Going for Two page. So our Discord channel server has over 750 strong people just coming to talk fantasy, all sorts of different topics. There's tons of great individual channels as well. So head over to the Going4Two.com Discord. And frankly, it's all free. So some Discords aren't, but the Going for Two Discord is. So yeah, the best value, bang for your buck. Can't go wrong there, right?
Free.
I would say you get what you pay for, but we always do give good quality.
Oh yeah, Doc,
right, Gator?
More than Doc. I have a question right off the bat.
Let's go.
Right off the bat,
is the question: is Paul McCartney a dick? Because I already know the answer to that question.
The answer is yes. Okay.
Well,
there you go.
Yes, she's asking. We're not asking.
So what's up?
The Athletic just reported that what?
Paul McCartney is just the worst. He's the worst.
The Athletic just reported that Deebo Samuel has suffered an MCL sprain. Isn't that in your knee?
It is. So it sounds.
I thought he hurt his ankle.
Sounds like he hurt both. He was already dealing with a high ankle sprain. So I don't know if this really changes anything as far as his outlook, because he was kind of dealing with a high ankle sprain. He's done for the rest of the fantasy season, almost assuredly. So now, in addition to that, with an MCL sprain, that might actually heal before the high ankle sprain does. But this could carry over. And the really important thing for them is, for a real football perspective, is this could carry over into the playoffs. So that's definitely something to continue to follow.
Oh, for their playoffs, like in January.
Their playoffs, not our playoffs.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can start right off the bat. Actually, I thought because that is the Thursday game. So if we want to start talking injuries, we could start talking about the 49ers and Seahawks. With Deebo being out, how's everyone thinking? Like, does this just seem like a big upgrade in the rankings for Brandon Ayuk? Or do we think whoever becomes now the number 2 wide receiver is actually going to get the biggest boost here?
I think it helps no one but CMC. I think CMC.
He is the wide receiver too. He's the wide receiver 1.
He is the wide receiver.
Ayuk will remain the wide receiver 2. Okay, fair enough.
I think it's CMC day. So when I'm playing in the playoffs wants to give me CMC, I'm all for it. I'm here.
I could argue this might help Ayuk's floor in that the number of targets he's probably going to have to be for game is probably going to be more solid than it would be. They can't go away from him in matchups. There's only really 2 other passing game options there. So
all I know is you're going to take the higher on Cole Juszczyk receiving yards next week. Just go higher. That's what's
so. Who's going to be their quarterback? Isn't Purdy hurt? Didn't he hurt his oblique?
yeah, so transition there, Doc. If you want.
I love that word.
So Purdy ended up with a kind of oblique / rib injury. So the thing is that, he was limited on the practice estimate today. So that is kind of encouraging. But this is not too dissimilar from what happened with Mike White of the Jets. And basically,
I would strenuously disagree because Mike White got the shit kicked out of him and the Jets.
Well,
I didn't see Purdy get hit that hard.
Oh, good.
Nearly that hard.
I guess the way to handle it is similar. Not the same mechanism of injury, but the way to handle it is similar.
Nailed. He was getting nailed.
Oh my God.
So
Mike
just
White
quick,
got absolutely eradicated.
Yeah, he did.
Oblique is in the shoulder, right?
Oblique is actually on
stomach.
the side of the chest.
Yeah.
Okay, so never mind. Close to the ribs. I can see why the comparison was there. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. I'm very oblique to the fact.
Yeah. So speaking of Mike White, just real quick segue. Remember how we talk on occasion about how like playing in the NFL is like getting into a bunch of car crashes? I think if you need like physical evidence of what that looks like, just go back and watch the highlights of Mike White getting eradicated and tell me that's not a car crash.
Twice. It looked like it hurt so bad.
Well, Gator agrees with you, Gladys. CMC is the only player to play on the 49ers.
Gator always agrees with me. That's why I love him.
Gator's a smart guy.
So, actually, we'll leave the comment up just because he's that smart. But yeah, Doc, what are we expecting Purdy to miss time?
Well,
are they really going to have to go to their 4th quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So limited in the practice estimate today, so that's encouraging. But the caveat is, as we were talking about, it's a quick turnaround because they're playing on Thursday. So, this one is really, there's definitely some question marks there. As of right now, unless they find something else, like they look a little harder and they find that he broke some ribs or something like that, I think that it's trending towards he's going to be available. He's going to be able to play, especially since he was able to practice on a practice estimate, at least in a limited fashion. So I think that's all encouraging, but it's not 100%. I don't even know. I meant to look it up, but who's next? Is it do they bring back Steve Young and Joe Montana? Who's next?
He played in
Josh Johnson.
Yeah.
Josh Johnson. That's right. So they do have a viable option in case Purdy can't go. So it's not the complete end of the world.
Josh Johnson is the perfect one-man ringer. He turns up, back to the practice squad, lad, off you go. He does it every year. Yeah. Last year was in the fantasy playoffs. He won a lot of people. I know this because it happened with me.
The Ravens.
Superflex League. I had to play him and Nick Foles in 1 week for fantasy semi-final to get me to the final. It worked. It was Josh Johnson and Nick Foles. It was wild. Josh Johnson's good for 1 week. He'll do it.
Apparently, Gator's saying he got hit on the first play. Viable? Yeah, viable for 1 week, Gator. But okay, so
we're gonna get to some of the other quarterback injuries, and if you want the opposite of viable, we're going to talk about some of those guys. I'd say we've already referenced less viable than Josh Johnson.
Yeah, that's for sure. Certainly, we've already referenced Mike White, so we want to just continue on that track. Rib injury for Mike White. He said you saw a couple ballistic missiles hit him. Okay, I'll come back. I know he did go to the hospital, but it seems like he made the team flight back. So it was a routine, quick check at the hospital, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, this guy's tough as nails. I mean, he took some massive shots in this game. Left the game twice, came back twice. I mean, he does not want to give this job to anybody else. But as of this point with his rib injury, unknown if he's really dealing with an injury to the bone, to the cartilage in the ribs, or both. Either one is extremely painful. But as of right now, they've said that he's expected to play in week 15. So that's great, but no guarantees. And we have seen plenty of cases on the show where more information comes out later. And it's like, they found a couple of rib fractures. We saw with Tua, I believe it was last year, as an example. Darrell Henderson, same deal. He was going to play, and then they did more imaging, and then he wasn't playing, and then he was out for a couple of weeks. So we've seen players be downgraded before. So you want to watch practice reports and be on the lookout for more imaging or updates. If he can't go, then it looks like Joe Flacco would be up. because Zach Wilson was a healthy and active this past week, and he's number 3 on the depth chart. Is that jive with what you guys are thinking?
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that would be the logical conclusion, but is it also they don't trust Zach Wilson to be the backup? They can't, like, he would need the full week of preparation to come in. Like, he couldn't come in cold and just pick it up, whereas Flacco's done that enough. I could see where, okay, if we have to start one, if like
the shitstorm in New York, if they went straight to Zach Wilson after what Mike White has done, like they believe that they're a playoff contender with Mike White. That's why they made the switch. Going back to Zach Wilson is detrimental to that ideal. They were okay. What were they, 3-1 with Joe Flacco at the start of the year?
That's true, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like Flacco,
they seem to trust Flacco to be able to throw the ball a lot more than Wilson. So just that, like the pass attempts.
But to go to Flacco now, knowing that if Zach Wilson has to suit up and sit there on the bench, it's going to create so much BS around that team that they don't want. Look, we're talking about Elijah Moore, led the team in targets? He had like 2 or 3 with Zach White in that span. This is the sort of thing that they don't want because they already know that this kid doesn't bring harmony to what the team's trying to do. They have good balance with Wilson, with Moore, with Corey Davis, who's had as good a year as he's ever had. You work in Conklin. You work in they look like a very well-balanced team. They were unlucky against the Bills team. They held them to the third quarter, give or take. And then it got away from them, maybe towards midway through the third. Game got away from them. But over here in New York, and I'm sure the doc can attest to this because he gets that New York media too, they're very much, they're starting to distance themselves from Zach Wilson to a point where they're still stringing him along saying he can still be the guy. But I'd be surprised if he is. I don't think he'll play I don't think he'll start for the Jets next year. I think the only way he starts for them now is if they're out of the playoff contention, which with this Patriots game could happen. With what the Chargers are doing could happen. I don't see them going to them. They might Josh Rosen him next year. That's all I'm saying.
Because I think they might. I mean,
they've seen enough to know that they can take Mike White and turn him into a capable starter. We've seen enough from Geno Smith to know you can take a veteran and be a capable starter. This kid has not shown it. It hasn't happened.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say to that is I think it's really important, especially for players in dynasty leagues, to recognize Zach Wilson has looked absolutely terrible for 2 years, but all prospect growth is not linear. So the thing is, they have 2 more years with an option for a 5th year to invest in the guy. They're going to keep him around. He's not going anywhere. And the thing is, he may get pushed into, playing again because of injury. And could he fall flat on his face again? Absolutely. But at the same time, we've seen this before with players where they stink, and then for whatever reason, it all clicks. And there's a non-zero chance that could happen. I'm not betting on it. I still think that he's, that this may be what he is.
Oh my God, they froze Doc.
We lost him.
And he's back.
Dr. Freeze.
Okay. Well, I mean, I finished the thought, so that's all I had to say.
It was timely chill.
I just would be very interested to see how quarterback competition goes next year if he's there. Because if they put him up against Mike White at the start of the year, so it's an open competition, he's going to be cooked. He's not going to win. And
no, if they're both there, until he can't do it, I feel like it's Mike White's team. He's already done enough.
That's a problem for a team that knew what they were doing when they took him pick 2. Well, that's a very big problem.
So would you rather pick up Joe Flacco or Josh Johnson?
Jamarcus Russell. That's all I'm saying.
If Purdy's out, I'd rather Josh Johnson. Oh.
I just need Jerry to stop talking shit in the chat.
Jerry did mention that Doc and Gladys are going to go down in the FPC fantasy playoffs. Of course, Dan and I aren't in them, so we can't really talk.
Let's speak on this right now. So week 11, Yeti. You went up against the Doc, and it didn't go so well for you. 170 to 117. So
you reverse the numbers: 171, 117. Yeah.
So. Are you going to bark all day, little doggy, or are you going to bite? That's what I want to know.
Little doggy.
That's what I want to know. So
a little puppy Yeti. A Yeti puppy.
A Yeti puppy.
Oh, they're so cute. They can only slightly eat your face off. But Doc, so you mentioned a name, unless I'm stepping on anyone who wanted to say anything, but you mentioned Geno Smith, and I did want to finish that. They were on Thursday night as well, the Seahawks. Yes. And the big question there is, the running back situation.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Homer seemed to get most of the work, but I guess do we know anything yet about either the availability of Kenneth Walker or DJ Dallas?
Yeah, so real quick, DJ Dallas dealing with a high ankle sprain. He missed week 14. He's probably out until the real life NFL playoffs. If Seattle even makes it that far, which they very well may not.
They just lose to Carolina.
Yeah.
Carolina Panthers, baby.
So the resurgent
Steve Wilkes,
Carolina Panthers.
Man, it's almost like they should have just hired Steve Wilkes in the first place instead of Matt Rule. Huh, who would have thought that?
Wow.
So weird.
What about Steve? What about Steve?
That's something we could talk about at some point. It's like there's really no incentive for these college coaches not to try to go to the NFL, because even if they completely just faceplant, they can just go right back to. Look at Nick Saban. The guy was an absolute unmitigated disaster as an NFL coach, and he goes back to college and he's a demigod.
He's even better than he was before. Yeah,
ridiculess. Like Matt Rule.
Well, it makes sense for the college coaches. Does it make sense for the NFL teams to get the job?
Yeah, right. That's a good point. I mean, Chip Kelly, like awful. Like Matt Rule gets.
Well, hey, we're gonna see one
run
tonight.
out of town on a rail, and somebody gives him a 5-year deal, with for college or whatever. It's like there's no incentive for these guys not to do it. It's like they could go and be the worst coach ever, and they're still gonna get a guaranteed 5, 6, 7-year contract with some desperate college program. So good for them.
And DJ Dallas probably was always.
I got into the wrong line of work.
I just wanted to say about that Seahawks running back. Remember how the story breaks? Tony Jones is going to be the lead running back.
Oh, who broke that? Who broke that? Adam Schefter, who doesn't know shit about fantasy, but still talks about it.
Adam Schefter's not a fantasy analyst, so you got to take that for what it is.
He had one less carry than DJ Moore. Go figure.
Yeah, he definitely didn't start. Like fantasy or not, that seemed like wrong information, because I don't even think he touched the football until the second half. So
listen, Schefter plays fantasy and he plays in those big leagues.
He was putting that out because he wanted his opponent to start
Tony Pollard better than Yeti or
Tony Jones.
I'd be doing it all the time, mate. I'd be doing it all the time.
So anyway, it seemed like DJ Dallas probably wasn't going to be too relevant anyway. The big issue is Kenneth Walker. So what do we know about Walker?
All right, so Ken Walker missed week 14 after not practicing at all during the week. The good news is he was estimated as a limited practice participant today. So I'm actually optimistic that he can get back for week 15. And that will conceivably solve all the running back problems for Seattle, because we saw that it was kind of a mess without him. Travis Homer was the guy who ended up getting the most work. So he ended up getting 9 carries for 26 yards, a couple of catches, and then Tony Jones didn't do much of anything. So
what? You think he's going to play Thursday?
Who?
Walker.
I do.
Okay.
So I'm optimistic. I shouldn't say I think he's going to play. I'm optimistic that he will play. So
if it's a 50-50 call, you're maybe leaning more towards that he would play, that he wouldn't. I think because it did seem like
Walker will play.
It did seem like he was a true game time decision. Like he wasn't ruled out until Sunday. So it seemed like he legit had a chance to play. I think that's kind of your point, where he wasn't far off. He was close. And then another 3 days of rest conceivably should do it.
Well, that and the, we talked about a little bit last week. I'll just be very brief. The nature of his ankle injury, his ankle sprain, is the ligaments that are affected are actually on the opposite side of the ankle than where they usually happen. And
actually, you did mention last week you thought he might play in week 14 here. So.
Yeah, he had a better chance than kind of with a standard ankle sprain. So these ligaments are thicker and stronger and more resilient. So he's got there's less instability involved with, having an injury on the inside ligaments of the ankle. So again, I'm optimistic that he's going to play. That doesn't mean he's going to. Anything could happen. He could have a setback in the next couple of days as he's trying to ramp up. But I'm encouraged by what I've seen so far, and I'm optimistic he can get out there for week 15.
So we talked about Brock Purdy. We talked about what was the other quarterback? I don't even remember.
Mike White.
Mike White, yes. Sorry, we're talking about Zach Wilson, but he shouldn't count as a quarterback. That's why I forgot him. But yeah, so we talked about those quarterbacks. But 3 quarterbacks suffered concussions this week, and funny, 2 in the same game. Not really funny, but coincidentally. So we've got Tyler Huntley for the Ravens, Kenny Pickett for the Steelers, and then Russell Wilson, who had I don't know if that was a nasty bump or is that just like the cringe of his face coming out. I'm not sure, but yeah,
hematoma. He had a hematoma. It's like,
but yes, officially designated concussion. So knowing the protocol, the new advance to the protocol, Doc, with thanks Dolphins, could we expect all three. I think we're expecting all three to sit, right? Like at least miss one game.
Yeah. So for all three of them, most likely they're out for week 15. Then it's week to week after that. So just running down the line, Kenny Pickett looks like it's going to be Trubisky time again in the Steel City for week 15. So I'm sure Gladys is excited for that.
So excited.
Russell Wilson. Looks like Brent Rippon is going to be the next one up there. And we can cover both of the Ravens quarterbacks together. So
Sure. Tyler
Tyler Huntley has the concussion. He's probably out for week 15. Lamar Jackson also missed week 14 with a PCL sprain in his knee. So estimate for him coming back was about 2 to 3 weeks, as kind of a conservative estimate. I'm kind of curious to see if the injury to Huntley forces their hand there and they try to kind of tape him, hold him together with duct tape and chewing gum and see if they can get him out there to, at least kind of be 60% of his normal self. We've seen players play on PCL injuries before and they're able to play. They're not at 100% effectiveness, but they can play. So I'm kind of curious to see how that goes. If they both miss, then Anthony Brown is next up for Baltimore, for those who might need to know that, like 2 quarterback or super flex leagues. It's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of like guys picked up off the scrap heap thrown into super flex spots with all these injuries and the other stuff going on. So,
well, how would we prioritize? We've got 5 potential options here between Josh Johnson on the 49ers, Joe Flacco on the Jets, Anthony Brown here with the Ravens, Mitch Trubisky on the Steelers, and then Brett Ripien with the Broncos. I think I know out of those 5 who I would prioritize as my number 1, but then after that, I'm pretty at a loss for who I'd want next.
Okay. Who do you guys like the most out of those 5 guys?
I'd like Trubisky.
Exactly. I think
purely because he had that run at the start of the year. He wasn't that bad. I don't think
he's clearly the best quarterback out of all these quarterbacks.
Yeah,
I think but he also has good weapons relative, like Deontay, Pickens, and Freiermuth. Like it's outside of maybe Josh Johnson with the 49ers, it's tough to get
dump offs to Harris. He's
right. Yeah.
I think there's a bit more meat on the bone with Trubisky. Johnson, I don't mind. Flacco had some success at the start of the year too, but I don't mind Trubisky. I think he can. I don't think he's a backward step from Pickett, if that makes sense. I don't think it's that much of a backward step.
That's fair.
Gladys, would you agree that Trubisky's the number 1?
I said something positive about Pittsburgh. Look at that. Gladys
you said something positive. Look at that.
There we go.
What was the question? Do I want
so?
Trubisky?
Well, yeah. Do you think Trubisky is the best quarterback to pick up of those 5?
Yes, I would. I have to pick up 2 quarterbacks because I have none in a league that I get to buy this week, but next week. But Trubisky's already. It's ridiculous. Trubisky's already picked up, so I would go Flacco.
I agree with that. And yeah. I think it kind of depends on what you need. Because the thing is, Trubisky has been, about as good as Kenny Pickett. That's a very fair statement. But the ceiling hasn't really been that high, which isn't to say that it couldn't happen. But we did see a couple of games with Flacco early in the year where he had a 32-point game in week 2. So it kind of depends. Are you facing, the top seed in the playoffs, and you're like, okay, I really need to score big this week. Or you're like, I just need somebody to throw into a super flex spot who's not going to get me like a goose egg. Then you might want to go for like a decent floor with a guy like Trubisky. So, that's kind of one way to evaluate it. But I don't dislike either one. For me, I think at this point I'm probably shooting for upside. I like what the Jets have shown and their resiliency. So I might lean Flacco a little bit, but it's pretty close. And I could see if somebody wanted to go Trubisky. I could see that. Josh Johnson, like you said, it was perfectly put. And then the other 2 guys, Anthony Brown and Brent Rippon, if you're starting those guys, things are probably not looking good for you. So that's where you're at.
Bam's saying
thank you.
Broncos might do well with a QB change, but then Shane Manila chiming in and saying that Brett Ripien is pure buttocks.
Yeah.
But he's buttocks said it's going to get me like at least 10 points.
You run him out there.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess the one aspect to like Ripien that's probably better than Johnson or even Flacco is, again, we think it's probably a good chance Wilson misses. Can't quite say that for Mike White. I think we're, like you said, Doc, you're kind of leaning towards Mike White playing, which is why you're saying like the upside chances on Flacco. I think the really safe floor, you put it well, is Trubisky, not just because of his performance, but also the expectation.
Yeah,
I think it's safer to think that he'll play as opposed to Flacco.
It's a really good point.
They just reported that Mike White is expected to play Sunday.
Yeah.
Apparently it's playing the Lions though, so may not be the go-to guy. I thought the Jets are playing the Lions though.
The Jets are playing the Lions.
If he was playing the Lions. Okay, I see. Never mind. I read that wrong. Right. Yeah, you want to throw against that defense, of course. But yeah, so I think that finished out the quarterback talk. We can talk about some ankles. You already mentioned Debo with the ankle and then potential MCL damage as well, but there were a couple of running backs who also suffered ankle injuries. Mike Boone and Dameon Pierce. So we're sticking with the Broncos here.
Okay. So Mike Boone. So this is, something we talked about Coach Speak last week with Petey Carroll. So this is another one that I thought was interesting. When Coach Hackett was asked if Boone could be done for the year, his response was, quote, "It doesn't look good right now," close quote, which isn't confidence inspiring, to put it mildly. So I'm not really optimistic here. I think we could have seen the last of Mike Boone for the year. So probably just meaning more work for Latavius Murray and the resurgent Marlon Mack out there in Denver, especially if Russell Wilson's going to be out this week, potentially.
Yeah. I guess, Murray, I think, is still probably a top 30 running back weekly. Maybe
I would think so.
With the ceiling of maybe entering in the top 24, but yeah, I think ideally you probably want him as your third running back. You might have to have him as your RB2, but yeah, should be at least, the volume with Murray, knowing that he can also catch passes. I think more significant probably would be Dameon Pierce, because he was getting most of the work for the Texans. So what do we know about this, Doc?
Not much, unfortunately. So, he tried to come back into the game late, wasn't able to. So the severity of his ankle injury on Dameon Pierce, unclear. MRI pending as of right now. So this is just something we need to be on the lookout for updates and kind of see, are we dealing with a low ankle sprain or are we dealing with something else? So low ankle sprain, could be anywhere from 0 to 4 weeks, which is a wide range, but usually it's on the lower end unless it's, really severe. So 0, 1, 2 week absence. And then anything else, high ankle sprain or the fictional mid ankle sprain, which isn't really a thing. There's low ankle sprain, and then there's everything.
Was that another
else.
Pete Carroll special?
Yeah, somebody made that up, and they're like, it's not really a high ankle; it's kind of more of a mid to high ankle. It's like, okay, whatever. So there's low ankle sprain, and there's everything else. And if it's anything else other than a low ankle sprain, 4 to 5 weeks minimum, and that would probably knock them out for the rest of the year, for our purposes, as fantasy players.
Yeah, so we really shouldn't guess, but knowing that, because it seemed like they were saying he was cleared to come back, but they chose to hold him out, that would make me guess it would be low ankle. But again, the MRI and the imaging, not during the game, but after, will be a much different tell on that. So
yeah, the imaging will tell the tale.
I don't think Rex Burkhead is a priority ad, is all I'm trying to get at.
I think that's a valid statement.
I'd rather pick up Marlon Mack.
That statement.
I'd rather pick up Dario Ogunbowale.
I support that as well.
All right. But I guess one last ankle injury was going over the receiver now, DJ Moore.
Yeah, so that actually got shifted. It was originally, they thought it was an ankle injury. Now it turns out it's a knee injury. So what they found was that he's dealing with a knee sprain. So the MRI was done. The severity is unknown at this point. So we just need to watch practice reports, be on the lookout for updates. Could be, much ado about nothing. It could be something. Thing is, Carolina really doesn't have anything to play for. So now we really get into the danger zone.
What? If they went out there in the playoffs, baby.
I thought they were 2 games out. My bad. I was looking at
that whole division.
Okay, never mind. Forget it.
No,
they're alive. No, they're alive.
Remember, Tom Brady didn't just beat Brock Purdy. He actually did lose to someone.
My bad. Sorry, Carolina fans, if you're out there, I apologize. I looked at the wrong team in the standings. So
they've got Sam Darnold now. They've got their quarterback. They believe.
They're
but I guess if DJ Moore is out, did it seem like Laviska Shenault was kind of taking a bigger role, and he might be the wide receiver one, as opposed to what I think would be expected, maybe Terrace Marshall if DJ Moore were to miss? Or do you not really want either?
I mean, I have a bias, so I'm gonna recuse myself from the discussion. So I'm more curious to hear what you guys think.
I want to know what your bias is.
My bias is like I'll tell you what my bias is. My bias is like I like people have been trying to make Laviska Shenault a thing for like 2 years, and I'm out. Like I've been out. So
enough on him. Enough.
Like it's, every time something happens, they're like,
can't tell if
he's
he's a wide
receiver
running back. That's right.
Like I'm over it. So if he turns out to like be the second coming of Deebo Samuel, like I will eat the biggest plate of crow ever, but I just can't do it. So that's my bias. So therefore, like
Terrace Marshall's the ceiling play. Like he's going to be the guy that's going to be catching downfield passes. If Darnold throws a deep touchdown, more likely to be with Marshall than it is with Shenault. And you mentioned earlier, upside, especially in the playoffs, is where you prioritize. So Doc's going with Marshall.
Well, didn't Darnold throw like 21 passes? They're to run first offense. I'm not picking up
the three highest scorers are probably Hubbard, Blackshear, and Foreman. So
exactly.
Go pick up Chubba Hubbard instead of any receiver.
Exactly.
That might be the play. You're right, Gladys.
Chubba
He's Canadian
Hubbard,
too, so yay.
He is?
Dan, do you not want to talk about the Panthers and move on? Is that why you're staring away from the camera? He's like, please don't go to me. I don't want to talk about Carolina.
There's only one Panthers, and that's the one's in Penrith. My friend, champions of the NRL. Let's kick on.
What
National Rugby League.
Oh,
that's right.
I think I understand abbreviations.
Nice.
Oh.
I definitely understand alliterations, like John. I almost said Dan. I guess I don't. Okay, so 2 running backs with neck injuries. But Doc, I think this is a good maybe opportunity to talk about like the difference between the 2 neck injuries. So we got Saquon Barkley and Dontrell Hilliard. You say neck injury and you kind of you fear the worst for both. And that might be the case for one, but it seems like maybe they're both on opposite ends of maybe not. Well, we won't say end for Hilliard on a spectrum, but certainly varying degrees of severity here that you could maybe run through.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we've had a couple of discussions on neck injuries the last couple of weeks where with Matt Stafford for one, where it was like he had a concussion and then now he's dealing with a neck injury. And that is kind of encompasses, as we're learning, a wide variety of different injuries where you could have a muscle strain in the neck, which is just, if anybody's like, turn their neck too fast and kind of strain the muscle in their neck, like it's painful, but it's nowhere near as dangerous as like a spinal cord injury, which is what Matt Stafford was dealing with. And that was also labeled under the umbrella of a neck injury. So there's a lot of variability there. So let's start with the bad news first with Dontrell Hilliard. So he's out with a neck injury. He's already been ruled out as of right now for week 15. And this could be bad. This could be season ending. I don't know the details of what the injury is, but this is all like leading up to like something that's not good. So, I think it's very reasonable that we may have seen the last of him for the fantasy season and possibly for all of 2022. So where does that leave us for the Derrick Henry handcuff? So Hassan Haskins has missed the last 2 weeks with a hip injury. So it looks like Julius Chestnut is the pass catcher / Derrick Henry handcuff for now, and then we'll kind of take it as it comes. But that's kind of where we're at with that. But for Dontrell Hilliard, it's not looking good. So, that's unfortunate. And then that takes us to Saquon Barkley, who is also, game time decision with what was called a neck injury. It turns out what he actually had is something called a stinger, which is basically when you have impact to the neck or shoulder area that stretches out the nerves that run underneath the neck and into the arm. And you can have pain, numbness, tingling, things like that. But it can be painful and it can last for a few weeks, but much less severe of an injury than something to do with the spine in the neck or the spinal cord or, other things like that. So that seemed like with Barkley, it seemed like he played less, even though it was a game time decision, he did play. And it seemed like he played less due to game script as opposed to the injury itself. And they got a really big game coming up against the Commanders B League. So there's a playoff spot on the line here for sure. And if he's able to practice this week without a setback, I feel like the Giants are going to lean on him big time. What do you think?
Both are going to get jumped by Detroit anyway. So, look, I think at this point, look, Brian Daboll pretty much come out and said, he needs to do better. What the guy had a neck stinger. He needs to do better. Okay, well, get your line healthy, get some receivers, and maybe get a better quarterback, and Barkley will do better. It's just one of those weird things where you're down like 21.
So get a new team.
Like 21 zip to the most high-scoring team in the league, and like we failed to put up over 24 points this year. Haven't put up over like whatever was required since like 2019. Like, get out of here. Like, what are we chasing here? Like,
get out of here.
We're talking. Forget about it, right? But it's one of those things. Like, if you're chasing like a win against Washington, we were close. Look, the first half against Washington was really good, and then we did nothing for the next hour. Like, that's the reality. Washington outplayed us in the second half of the game, probably through overtime. They were unlucky. So to rely on Barkley the way that they're relying on him each and every week, it's insane. What are you going to do? Give this guy?
Do they have a choice?
Are they going to give him? Yeah, I mean, they don't have a choice. But what are they going to do? Pay this kid? Like, if Barkley turned around and said, "You know what? My neck is sore. I'm off contract. I don't think I can play this week." Like, I wouldn't blame him at this point because Richie James concussion, Kenny Golladay's a ghost. Their best players Isaiah Hodgins and Darius Slayton, who they tried trading for the last 2 years. Daniel Jones is garbage. Like, what are we doing here thinking that they're going to compete with Washington, who are probably in a healthier position to compete for a playoff spot? Giants started off hot. They looked good. For what they were, they looked good. And
Agreed.
They made chicken shit out of chicken salad. But at this point, we're talking about a team that like is literally falling apart at the seam. 2 weeks ago, none of their O-line players had started. They had all replacements against Dallas on Thanksgiving. They get one or two back, and all of a sudden they're back. They bench Adoree Jackson to play him on punt and kick returns. And then you see what happens like Devontae Smith. Like, the sorts of things where done extremely well this year for what he's had, and this isn't his team. It's 5 years of bad David Gettleman, bad Dave Gettleman. But it's just one of those things where they have to work through the next month where they're going. All these injuries, they can't even get rid of Kenny Golladay the way his contracts work. They can't get rid of him. No one's going to try. What are they going to do? Cut him? They're going to trade him for a seventh? But he's impossible to get rid of at this point. So they're stuck with him and that ridiculous contract he got. They're talking about having to maybe pay Barkley. And if you do damage to his neck, you're going to pay him in 6 months' time? If you further damage to that boy's neck, are you going to pay him in 6 months' time? That's where I'm at with this. So, like, if you really think that this kid is the franchise for the next 3 years without a quarterback, because you're talking about having to replace Jones, you didn't pick up his fifth. What are you going to do with Barkley?
Well, I'll tell you what they're going to do with him. If he's out there, they're going to give him the ball a whole bunch and try to make the playoffs.
But he's going for like 2.2 a carry since. Like, he's going nowhere. He's not even getting the receiving work. His receiving was like 18 yards a game. First half of the year, he was like 35, 40. He was going all. They're not even getting it to him in space now. So he's running into a brick wall and he's not space.
I have a question. Do you think Saquon is a good? Do you think Saquon Barkley is a good running back?
I don't think it's debatable. I think he's fantastic.
Would you want him as the starting running back on your team?
I didn't want him to take him with the second pick of the draft. They shouldn't have taken him then. It was a bad.
They should have taken Sam Darnold instead.
So he's a great player, but you don't want him on your team.
They should have taken. Every Giants fan will tell you that they should have taken Quentin Nelson at the time. That was the pick. He was the guy that we needed because we still had
Eli Josh Allen, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
In hindsight, we know that was probably the pick.
We know, but like
Brown should have taken Josh Allen.
No one.
Should have taken Josh Allen. Everyone should have taken Josh Allen.
Every Giants fan at the time didn't think that was a thing. It was like, Eli's here. We've got Beckham. Mm-hmm. We need to protect him because our line was terrible. Hernandez was garbage. Quentin Nelson was the guy that everyone wanted. It wasn't really a quarterback here or Barkley there. If they thought they were going to compete, but why compete? If you think you're going to compete with Barkley, why trade Beckham? It's stupid. The whole they get in Barkley, they trade Beckham. Like the
David
whole
Gettleman,
thing,
ladies and gentlemen.
Like, it's just maddening. You're not going to win more games with Barkley than you would have Beckham then. It's madness to think.
Well, I mean, it's not like all that stuff. I don't want to turn this into the Back Row Giant show, but it's not like Beckham's.
Where's DeAndre Baker?
He's sucking on the pit of the green goddess.
In New York happened in a vacuum. I mean, they didn't trade him because they didn't think he was talented. I mean, he had some other stuff going on. So and he made it back there, which would be the true irony.
I was thinking, what if they signed Beckham?
That would be hilarious.
Listen. Everyone's got their mind about that. Like, I'd love for him to come back and right the wrong, but it's not going to be this year. He's not going to come back and look at this and go, "Yeah, I can make a difference in this sinking shit." Like,
Daniel Jones, the quarterback I wanted to assign.
That's it. Like, if the lad's smart, he goes to like Buffalo for 6 months, or the Chargers. Look, he's based out in LA, right? His home's out in LA. His wife and kid are out in LA, or whatever it is. Like, if he goes to the Chargers, like he can compete with, like, he doesn't have to do a whole lot with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. He can walk into that team and work his way through. He'd replace Josh Palmer. I love Josh Palmer.
Yeah, you watch your mouth with that Josh Palmer.
Yeah.
I love Josh Palmer, but like, if you're telling me that like Beckham can't outproduce him, or they all can't exist together,
Letterkenny were real. I don't think
in order
he
to
lived
defend
that
my
far from
boy
Letterkenny.
Josh Palmer.
I'm just saying, like, there's teams that are competing. The playoff picture is a lot more clearer now than what it was a month ago when the Beckham talk started. T.Y. Hilton signed for Dallas today, so that may or may not be off the cards. And I love the signing for Hilton. Good for him. But, you know, what's he going to do? Go to Tampa? Tampa's cooked.
Listen, I'm sure for all the Giant fans out there, this is riveting. For everybody else who doesn't care about the Giants, thanks for watching. I'm sure you left 5 minutes ago.
Well, we still have to talk about the Giants here because it does transition well. We
don't have to talk about Richie James. We don't have to talk about Richie James, please.
No, I will say, Chris,
just drop
if you could let us know the scoring settings. Is this PPR, half PPR? We'll kind of dive through. I think I've already got my answer on this, but Chris looking for help in actually, he says week 16, but I'm pretty sure all those matchups, are they week 16 matchups? Yeah, I guess they are.
I think they are.
Yeah. All right. So, so half PPR.
Yeah, point PPR.
Interesting. Okay, I guess Chris got the first round bye, probably, I'd imagine, because I would say it seems a little cocky to just assume you're getting to week 16 while week 15 is here. But if you have the first round bye, you can maybe afford to take 2 weeks to look ahead. But needs to start 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. So 4 of these players max: Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Ramondre Stevenson, J.K. Dobbins, George Pickens, Adam Thielen, Zay Jones, Jameson Williams, and needs the high upside long shot. So is there, I know right off the bat, like, I've got a few thoughts already, especially in half PPR, but anyone want to chime in with something that comes to mind?
Yeah, something comes to mind for me. You gotta, just because as fantasy players we're off in week 15, like, they're still going to play actual games. You got to see who's healthy. So we could give you the optimal lineup here. 2 or 3 of these guys could get hurt, and then your decision gets made for you. So, that's part of it. It's always good to look ahead. But, injuries still happen in week 15, even when your fantasy team's on a bye, and you got to adjust as a result of that.
Well, so I think we have been talking about Barkley. Like, I'm not benching Barkley here, right? Like, and especially 2 weeks from now, like, I think you have to play Barkley.
Again, it depends on how big the stinger is.
True, and we'll see. Like, if I guess the complication is if Barkley misses this week, what are the coming off the injury the week later? Like, is that
it was obviously
just for the record? I don't think that's going to happen. Like, unless he has some kind of setback or something, I think he's fine, and I think he ends up doing Barkley things next week. If he has a setback or gets re-injured, that's a different story. But I just said that, so
I think Jonathan Taylor and Barkley have to be in the lineup, especially in half PPR. I want both those players. I think JT against the Chargers, but that's a great matchup. That run defense is pretty bad. So I think those two are pretty obvious, right? Like, is there anyone disagree with Barkley and Taylor?
Nope.
And then knowing it's half. Dan?
I don't mind Dobbins versus Atlanta.
I was actually going to go with Ramondre for the third option. And the key here is, I think, especially half PPR, I think with so many good running backs, I think you have to flex a running back. I wouldn't pick 3 of those receivers over 3 of the running backs. So I would definitely either flex either Ramondre or Dobbins.
I would flex either one. If Harris is out, I would flex Ramondre. If Harris is active, then I would flex Dobbins. I mean, I think that's what you're looking at, provided they're both healthy.
In half PPR, I would start JT and Ramondre as the running backs. I would flex Saquon in case he gets hurt. And then the wide receiver would be yikes. I would say Zay Jones, but that's a really, really bad matchup.
I think the best matchup there probably is Jameson Williams with the Panthers, right? Because I think Giants are tough matchup. Well, is it, Dan?
Giants
Why?
secondary.
Giants are garbage.
Okay.
So,
then
Adam,
I
Thielen
don't
is-
know. I'm kind
Thielen it
of
is.
leaning
Garbage.
Thielen number
Giants are
one
garbage.
and
Giants
Pickens
run
number
D's
two.
okay. Giants red zone
if,
D's okay.
Pickett is
Giants
back.
pass D's trash.
So I think
against Las Vegas, yeah, that's a good pick.
So I think the consensus here seems to be Taylor, Saquon, and Thielen, and then either flexing Ramondre or Dobbins. I would vote for Ramondre. I honestly, Doc, I think even if Damian Harris is back, I'm still going Ramondre.
I'm with that. Like that. I think it's close. I think you can go either way. You're not ruling either way.
But I think the key is, again, knowing the format, half PPR. You're not going to rely on receptions as much. Flex the running back, which, to be fair, Ramondre certainly helped because of his receiving role. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit here as he is playing tonight. So, I think JT and Saquon and Thielen probably seem like the guys to start, and then decide who you want as your third running back to flex. I think is probably how we'd all say to go, with debate on
That
who
is exactly
flex.
not what I said, but okay.
Well, what did you say?
Well, sorry. Well, yeah, she said flex. Really, the person you should flex is whoever plays the latest between Saquon, JT, and Ramondre. Whoever's got the latest start should be the flex player, because then you can, if something
Take
happens, you can pull them out for whoever. But yeah, I think we're agreeing. But Gladys, to say, you said Saquon should be in. That's kind of what I was saying. JT and Saquon in, and then from there, you and I are saying Stevenson. I know Dan's preferring Dobbins, but
Jamo's not getting enough. Jamo's not getting enough volume right now.
I'm excited. I'm excited for Jamo. He's just got better options.
Yeah.
Like he could put a touchdown this week. What if he doesn't catch a touchdown? Then he's one catch for 40 yards, 5 points.
Yeah, he's not getting the volume.
I'm definitely encouraged that he's getting the ball. Detroit looks really good, so he's not an empty chair. But I just think there are better options.
Can I ask what happened to Tyreek Hill?
Well, we're good. I think Doc, we're going to blitz through the injury. So you want to start with Tyreek Hill then? I guess that's a good way to go.
Didn't he go out and then come back in?
Yeah, I didn't even list him because I think he's all right, unless something else pops up. But I think he left with an ankle and he came back in.
They also play Saturday though, 3 games Saturday. So one less day to recover.
In Buffalo,
Jackson.
Buffalo, or it's going to be cold.
So it was an ankle. He came out, he came back in, and he's just getting treatment on it. So, I think he's going to be all right, barring some kind of setback or something during the week. I think he's in line to be fine for week 15.
All right, that's all I need to know.
I see 3 players with hip injuries, Doc. Jeff Wilson, Amari Cooper. Then talk about Khalil Herbert potentially coming back. So you want to blitz through the 3 off the hip?
Yeah. So Jeff Wilson will start there. When asked for an update on his hip, Coach McDaniel said the test results are, quote, more positive than the worst case scenario, close quote, which sounds reassuring. But let's say you were visiting a sick relative in the hospital and you asked one of the doctors how they were doing, and they told you that what they're seeing is more positive than the worst case scenario. Would you feel great about that? I don't know if I would. I'd like to hear something like, oh, they're doing pretty well. They're doing okay. They're doing something. It's like, but being better than the worst case scenario is a very low bar.
Well, what is the worst case scenario? Like he completely shattered his hip and he'll never play football again.
He blew his hip into a million pieces and it's completely broken, and or it's like Bo Jackson 2.0.
So it's not that. No, it's not that. But anything short of that. It could be anything else.
That's something. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of distance between not that and being healthy enough to play. I don't know what we're dealing with here. But we just saw Jamar Chase have a hip injury where he had, not the worst case scenario, but he missed 4 or 5 weeks with a torn labrum and a hairline fracture of the hip. So, could it be something like that? Could it be a muscle strain around the hip? All these are in play. But I'm not feeling really optimistic about this. So it's just something we got to watch the practice reports on. But if he's not practicing, I think you gotta figure that he's going to miss at least this week and maybe more. So that puts Raheem Mostert back on the radar for the time being. And he's not exactly been a pillar of health throughout his career, although he has been effective when he's out there. It's just he's not out there as much as maybe we would like. So Salvon Ahmed and, even Myles Gaskin are still, kind of floating about, and they could potentially have some value down the line If
I can
these
imagine
guys get
Gaskin
hurt.
might get on the field because of his pass catching work.
Yeah.
It seemed
Yeah.
like they were throwing a lot of passes to Wilson, so I could see him being the more natural replacement for the Wilson role. And most are kind of taking his role that he's already had, which maybe just getting more carries.
Yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
Mostert might be one of the big priority ads of the week then, if he's available.
Yeah, I definitely like that. Yep.
Doc has 2 minutes because game starts in 4.
Okay, so let's just bang out the rest of these. So we did all the quarterbacks, we did most of the running backs.
I gotta pick
So
a prop.
let's do the lightning round. So
Lightning round.
go. Travis Etienne, foot injury. The activity's still down, but looks like he's back, so it is what it is. DeAndre Swift, shoulder and ankle injuries, had 18 touches in week 13. Things were looking up. Now back to the way that it was. 9 touches in week 14, 6 carries, 21 yards, 3 catches for 18 yards. After a 1-week bump, it looks like he may have turned back into a pumpkin, and it's more of the same we've been seeing for the last month plus. So the Lions are still a game and a half out of a playoff spot, but they've looked good. So
at home.
He's still risk for re-injury and shut down the stretch if they lose a couple of games. So if you roll with him, it seems like he has a floor of something like we saw this week with upside like what we saw in week 13. So hopefully that allows you to gauge kind of what to expect if you run him out there. And that's that for running backs.
Well, I think Khalil Herbert might be coming back this week.
So that is a good point. So one thing we can address, Khalil Herbert looks like he might be back to practice this week, and he was working at least in somewhat of a timeshare with David Montgomery before he got injured. So that's something to monitor. Other guys to consider adding if you have a free spot, Alexander Madison for Minnesota, Joshua Kelly for the LA Chargers, the presumed Austin Eckler backup. Benjamin in Houston because of the injury to Dameon Pierce. And then, kind of going a little bit deeper, Keontae Ingram and Darrell Williams for Arizona, Justin Jackson for Detroit, and JaMychal Hasty for Jacksonville. And then the last one I'll mention, Jaylen Warren. Like, it was looking like he was getting close to a 50-50 split before he got injured and he missed a week or two. And it looks like he might be back. So, just something to keep in mind that he could still have some value. And if something were to happen to Najee Harris, like he could vault back into being like, a high-end RB2 as the Steelers kind of close it out here. It's back up, handcuff your studs time. Fresh legs, even for a week or two, can win you a championship. So this is the time you want to have healthy bodies out there and not have holes in your lineup because you're going to be facing the best teams in your league. So you want to have as many healthy guys out there as you possibly can. T. Higgins, injured in pregame warmups, only played 1 snap. Anybody else get bamboozled and had the rug pulled out from them on that one? I know I did. Well, luckily it wasn't a game I had to win, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of unhappy people out there.
Well, this is twice this has happened with Higgins this year.
Is that right?
Legit, can we trust him at all the rest of the season, honestly?
I mean, I think we can trust him as much as anybody else. Like, I don't even know what happened. It was like he got out there for 1 snap and he injured himself in pregame warmups, but nobody let anybody know that he wasn't going to play. So that might be more of like a Bengals centric thing than anything else. I really don't know what to say about that.
Zach Taylor said he snuck on the field. Said he wasn't even supposed to be on the field. Zach Taylor said that T. Higgins snuck on the field.
So the coach clearly has control of that team. Good.
Yeah.
Love that confidence.
It's Zach Taylor. So there you go.
I know for myself, I've got Higgins in one league and I'm not making the playoffs. I'm with Bam in the consolation bracket there. I think Bam's there anyway. I'm sorry if you did make the playoffs, Bam, and misturbed you, but I thought we were both kind of down there. But yeah, so for me, like, it's pretty easy. Like I've got this one league where it doesn't matter, so I can easily just bench Higgins. But for people who are still in the playoffs, I'd have a hard time trusting Higgins. I think. I know I've got him in the zombie league, and I've got so many other good options that I probably just going to drop him, honestly, and almost that's a landmine for someone else to deal with. But yeah, I'd have a hard time, I think, plugging him back in the lineup after this, knowing that like you lose, you're out with the playoffs. So I don't know, because I think up to this point I've been ranking him kind of around top 12, top 10, maybe top 15. Now it's closer to 30 probably if he plays. So that's kind of just my take on it.
Did you mute Doc, Dan? Or did you mute Doc, Kyle?
Doc, go now.
He's
Yeah.
muted. Ah, there we go.
Okay, there we go.
The golden voice.
Yeah, it was like we were on around the horn there for a second. It was like I got Tony Reale here muted me. All right, so
Did I give you a point? Like, is there?
Yeah, I don't know. So with T. Higgins, severity of this hamstring injury unclear, so it's kind of week to week at this point. Let's see if he can practice this week. Be on the lookout for updates there. Tyler Boyd, sticking with the Bengals wide receivers, dislocated his finger early in the game. So not only is this painful, but there's also issues of instability because the ligaments get stretched out, even if you put it back into place. It's unclear if there are associated injuries, like a little break can happen sometimes. So he could be available this week, could miss a week or two. For those of you that need to know these type of things, Trent squared in Cincinnati. Trent Irwin and Trent Taylor, the next wide receivers up for the Bengals, if they both miss. Trent Irwin this week went two catches on 2 targets for 58 yards and a touchdown. So that, might be something.
It seems like he's very much more the Higgins replacement. Like he'll go deep, like those will be the type of passes he'll catch.
Yeah,
So
it seems like,
upside.
they both might be, I don't know if I want to say viable because then Gator J will get mad at me, but they might be serviceable.
Because still no Hayden Hurst, right?
If you're really getting desperate. What?
Because Hayden Hurst missed last week too, right? So we don't
Yeah,
know.
we'll get there, I promise. Corey Davis, concussion. In the protocol, we know the deal at this point. More likely he's out this week, and then it's week to week after that. DJ Moore, we already talked about. Amari Cooper with the hip injury was a game-time decision leading up to week 14. He did play, but he basically aggravated the injury on the first play and was limited after that. Only ended up with 2 catches for 42 yards. So he's high risk heading into week 15, even if he does practice. And I realize you might not have a choice but to play him if he's active. But this exact scenario could play itself out again next week. I'm going to feel much more confident if you have the luxury of seeing him actually get through a whole game without having a setback as far as running him out there. Treylon Burks checking back in on him. Concussion. He missed week 14. Let's see if he can clear the protocol and practice in full this week. If he can, that sets him up to be back for week 15. Cortland Sutton, bad hamstring injury. I feel like he's going to be done for the year, but anything's possible. Darius Toney, Dan's old buddy, missed weeks 12 through 14, but was able to get back on the practice field leading up to week 14. So if he can practice this week, then that bodes well for a week 15 return. Daniel Bellinger, rib injury, got knocked out of the week 14 game. Again, same thing we've been talking about the rib injuries up to this point. Unknown if he's dealing with an injury to the bone, the cartilage, or both. So just watch practice reports and be on the lookout for more imaging or updates. Hayden Hurst, as Kyle mentioned, calf injury, missed week 14 without practicing at all. Severity still unknown, but this is really not looking good. I'm kind of suspicious this is a grade 2 partial tear, but let's see if he can practice in any capacity leading up to week 15. And then last but certainly not least, Dallas Goedert missed the last 4 weeks and was on IR because of a shoulder injury, but he could be back to practice and could be back for week 15. So do your due diligence and take a look and see if he was dropped in your league. And depending on how you look at tight end, he could be worth a look. So, see.
All right. So just a quick question here from Jair's. At least I hope I'm pronounced that correct. To transition us to this Monday night game. Up by 11, but their opponent has Devontae Parker. I think that's pretty that's you're probably sweating that out the entire night. Like that's not something that's gonna. I could see Parker hitting that, but if he's having a slow game, he could still rebound and hit that late enough. It's a slow enough margin. If you go up by 30 and he starts off slow, you can probably feel good then. So sorry, Jair's. I don't if you were looking to have a set your mind at ease, but that's definitely attainable. Unless someone has an inside scoop to why Parker will do awful. And that's why no one picked him in the props.
I got nothing. I
almost picked the rival against him, but I didn't.
I know better than to pick anything Devontae Parker.
Right. Well, hey, I actually got a funny story about that. So Patriots Cardinals 40.5 over or higher lower, and the Patriots favored by 2.5. And where do we get these lines? They are from Underdog. So if you sign up for Underdog with the promo code GF2, you'll get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So if you want to bet on this game or other contests coming up, we talk about week 15 coming up, and then of course all the weeks after that, postseason and whatnot. So tons of great game picks, prop picks, and we'll get to all that now. So just looking here, I guess Dan, like last week, I think he's the only one who went higher on this 40.5. if that's correct.
Yeah, the Cardinals are okay going higher at home, and the Patriots are okay chasing as well. So they do okay on the road as well with implied totals. So I didn't actually hate it. It wasn't like the total was incredibly high enough for them to chase. Patriots are competent. They're in the playoff hunt, so they're trying to put on points on the road as well. That's the only thing I'm looking at here. Like, they're both okay to score points. They both have their problems, and I feel like the Patriots will keep them honest and try to chase a fair bit. So 44. I'm not overly happy about watching one team do more than the other, but here we are. It's
Sorry, I put it wrong. It's 44, not 40 and a half.
No, 44. You're on last week's. 44.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's why. Oops, my bad.
Yeah. But it's okay.
So just real quick.
That makes it worse. Like, I'd be happier at 40.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you'd want it to be lower.
I'd be happier at 40 and a half.
All the rest of us took lower, so we would want that.
I think Mac Jones has been playing okay. Kyler Murray can do better. If there was ever a time for Arizona to pull their head out a little bit, it would be now. You know, being 4-8, like, that's a problem. And 6-6 Patriots, they're okay on the road. Cardinals are okay going over at home as well. So I don't hate the
Cardinals
idea of it.
Suck at home.
Going over.
Kind of suck everywhere, don't they? Though.
Yeah, but going over.
That's what I was going to say.
They're like 3-2-1 at home. So I don't hate it.
Doc, you sound like you're going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to go over the injuries real quick. So Jacoby Myers concussion, he's out for this game. Damian Harris was doubtful. He's been officially ruled inactive for this game. Rondale Moore with a groin injury is out. And then Zach Ertz is out until 2023 with ACL and MCL post-surgery. So interested to see how Trey McBride does with more opportunities kind of for the rest of the year. But I think that's everybody as far as the injuries are concerned.
Which, again, maybe is a bigger week for Parker, which, sorry, Jay Ears there, is that could definitely help him.
He's, the thing with Parker is he's boom bust, so it's like that you're kind of right at the 50-50 line. It's like
he could easily smash that 11, or he could fail to hit it even with the extra.
Go 2 for 15, or he could go, 6 for 60 and a touchdown. So, it's like, you don't know.
So I agree with Dan. I'm also taking the Cardinals. Just because this will only be the second game we've seen with Marquise Brown and Hopkins. And I think that might be enough the Patriots can't just shut down one. I think that's what Belichick's famous for. Take away your best weapon. What is their best weapon, right? Like, that's something where he might not be able to. And I think, the Cardinals scored 24 points last week with both, or 2 weeks ago before their bye week. The Patriots, they average, I think, was 20 points a game this year. So by that math, the Cardinals, I at least like them as 2.5 point home favorite, home underdog. Sorry, so that's my reasoning for going Cardinals. I
should mention, I don't think it's in me as a Giants guy to ever back a team that Joe Judge is on. I just it's in my bones to not want to support anything that guy does. What a clown! But Steve Wilkes gets it. He says the Patriots offense is coached like a defensive coordinator is coaching them. So he knows what's up. So I can't do a Patriots thing. I'm going on the Cardinals. I'll take the +2.5 at home.
Gladys.
Oh, so a double XP week in COD. So yeah, Kyler was studying COD instead of the Patriots game. But yeah, Gladys, what are you taking? Are you taking the Patriots, and are you taking the higher or lower?
Taking the Patriots and lower.
Okay, so matching Doc.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm going with the Patriots and the lower as well. This kind of seems like one of those Belichick games where it's like you really have to worry about when there's a big discrepancy between the coaching ability. It's like Belichick just eats these guys for lunch, man. So it's like whatever you think about Arizona and Cliff Kingsbury, like he's been much maligned, but I definitely think there's a large disparity in coaching ability here. And if there's anything that Belichick can take advantage of, it's that. And they really have not looked good as far as playing as a cohesive unit, even though they have a lot of really, really good players. So even if they keep it close, I think this is one of those games the Patriots win by a field goal late or they blow them out of the box. And either way, I like the Patriots, and I'll just take the lower because why not?
So the one thing they have is that Kyler Murray's rushing ability, and that could be the X factor. Gladys, you jumped on this immediately before Dan even shared the lines. You're like, "What's Kyler Murray's rushing total?" And 36.5 rushing yards. You're smashing that higher.
Higher, much higher. Yeah, Patriots
Uh,
played 2 rushing quarterbacks, and both of them scored. Both of them rushed for more than 75 yards on them.
It has been the kryptonite to Belichick's defense when
Didn't
it's
flinch. Didn't even see the lines. Just give me Kyler over.
Yep.
But the rest of us all went with Patriots passing options. So I guess Doc leading the way. One of the things on Underdog, which again, sign up for Underdog with using the promo code GF2, capital G, capital F, digit number 2, just like on the hat. Going4two.com/store for all the hats and the gears and stuff. Rating Global, Letterkenny shirts, Scott Fishbowl shirts, all that great merch. But Doc, you're going. It's funny. We love fantasy. We love fantasy football. We have shied away completely from picking the higher lower on fantasy points.
Yeah.
The entire season, you finally break the mold. Mac Jones higher than 13.95 fantasy points.
Yeah, so we got to talk about this. So scoring wise, are we counting touchdowns as 6, or are we counting them as
It's
4?
however it is an underdog.
Underdog, yeah. What is Underdog scoring system?
I don't know what it is.
I will punch that out for you in a second.
I was good with it either way. I mean, it seemed there was a lot of what I felt like were decent options, but
it's 6 points. It's 6 points. 6 points receiving touchdown. It's reception half a point. 6 points receiving touchdown. Receiving yards 0.01. Rushing touchdown 0.6. So 6 points per touchdown either across the board.
Okay.
They take points off for interceptions.
Sorry, passing touchdowns 4. So rushing touchdown is 6. A receiving touchdown is 6. 4 for
we got it. What's negative for interceptions?
What's interception?
One.
Okay. All right.
One whole point.
And -2 for a fumble.
It's like the anti-Scott Fishbowl.
Well, I was gonna say Mac Jones threw, I think it was interception in his first 5 games this year, and he hasn't thrown an interception since. So 4 straight games. Does he make it to 5?
Because he's not throwing the ball. Did you not see him on the sideline yell, "Throw the fucking ball"? He's not throwing the ball. So yeah, he did say it. He was yelling at Patricia.
Past 2 games over 35 attempts, 39 at Minnesota, 36 at Buffalo. Teams that are high-scoring teams. Like, I get it, but we're talking about Buffalo, who they're likely chasing, Minnesota, who are high-scoring. Minnesota bring the best out of every quarterback, right? like they just do. They just invoke quarterbacks to go fucking nuts on them. So it's one of those things. Like, if Arizona's on, I get why this could be a good game for Mac Jones to be on.
Anyway, so Dan and I both went with Patriots receiving props. He went Hunter Henry higher than 30.5 receiving yards. I went Nelson Aguilar higher than 29.5 receiving yards. Dan, I'd imagine the argument the same. No Jacoby Myers. It kind of raises everyone up, and low totals.
No, absolutely not.
And those tight ends.
It's funny because I was researching and I avoided Hunter Henry for a specific reason.
Arizona absolutely dreadful against tight ends, giving up about 74 yards a game. They're absolutely atrocious. Now, the other prop Hunter Henry had was over 3 receptions. If it was a 2.5, I might have had a sniff. I don't feel confident in him getting more than 4, but could he get away with 1? Johnny Smith at 12.5 was enticing too.
That would have been my second pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that he's never really, the day that he's involved, he's not involved for another month, and that's problematic in that regard.
That's
so
the problem with Aguilar, to be honest.
Hunter Henry, he's starting to kind of pop in and around. You can see they're trying to get him involved. Like, sometimes the ball's just not in his hands. It goes over his head, goes wide, incomplete, whatever it is. So you can see they try to do it. It's just not clicking. Must have something to do with having Joe Judge and Matt Patricia as offensive coordinators and quality quarterback quality control coach. It might have something to do with that because Joe Judge is fucking shit. But
wow,
sorry,
I've
got this in me. There's a lot to get out, and I'm really restraining myself.
Yeah, he barely talked about this the first time the Patriots were on TV with the Bears.
Yeah, but it's
kind of scary.
Yeah, but
if this is you holding it in, I don't know what it would look like.
We're talking about the Bears. Like, it was a nothing game, but this should be enjoyable. So it's just one of those things.
And they're kicking off.
All right. Well, we got the bets in. So Kyle, why don't you give them the standings?
Well, I did, because before that, I did want to touch on, like, my reasoning for Aguilar was what I alluded to. Without Jacoby Myers, I looked this up. I want to share it. Both the 2 games Jacoby Myers missed earlier, he hit the over both times. And so 29.5 I thought was a nice low number to kind of be able to hit.
I do like that one. There were a lot of what I thought were kind of low-ish receiving props to kind of try to take the higher on. So
I was considering both the running backs. Because I didn't know which running back I wanted to take, it also made the verses almost impossible for that too. But it's funny, Dan, you mentioned no one picks Devontae Parker. I remember the first ever rookie pick I ever had, my first ever dynasty league. First round pick was Nelson Aguilar, and I remember that was my consolation prize, and I mean that was awful anyway. But because I really wanted Devontae Parker, and he got taken one pick ahead of me, and I was disappointed to have to take Nelson Aguilar. Pretty sure I traded him away like 2 days later, so that turned out to be the right decision there. But my first ever rookie pick was Nelson Aguilar, so call back to that, and I'm picking Aguilar tonight. But yeah, Doc mentioned updated the standings. Doc's kind of taken over now. Actually, I want to start out. We went, what was it, 4 for 12 2 weeks ago in week 12.
Yeah.
Doubled that up last week. Went 8 for 12. So kudos to everyone except Dan. Who finally goosed for the first time this year. Went 0-3. So
I had an off week last week.
I think you guys both went 3-0, right?
Yeah, Gladys and I both went 3-0. We Doc, Gladys and I all took the Saints and as 3.5 point underdogs and the lower. Those both hit. Gladys hit with Will Lutz, 1.5 field goals made. That was another one of those automatics. She was the first one to name it, so super confident there. And then my rival's Godwin pick worked. I remember going into the last drive, he didn't have 31 more receiving yards than Jarvis Landry. So they did need that last drive for that one to hit, but it ultimately ended up working.
Nice.
Mike Evans just cratering towards the end of the season.
Yeah. It's been more than to the end. Like I think it's been 9 weeks since he scored a touchdown.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for the standings, Doc
I think Kyler Murray's hurt. He went down without touching. No one touched him, and he's not getting up.
Well, that's not great.
No.
Yeah, I got a big money league where he's my quarterback, and I mean, I got a first round bye this week,
they're
but
showing it again. Yeah, he's down. He's out.
All right,
contact, no contact.
I mean, luckily I have
no
Colt McCoy in that
contact.
league, so
no. He was running. He was on a scramble, and he just went down.
Goodbye, yellow brick road.
No contact.
All right, well, Colt McCoy's coming in, folks. So luckily, sorry, Gladys. I guess you're you don't go 3 for 0 this week.
That's okay.
But yeah, so Doc's
really
kind of leading the way, 27, 12, and 3 on the props.
That's not fair. Gladys, you find us another prop now, quick. Find us another one because that's garbage. Quick, give us something else.
Receptions. How many? What was it?
3.5. 3.
You got to go over 3.
Over.
There we go. Let's lock that in. That's garbage.
Right.
First play.
Mulligan for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, come on.
Watch him be fine.
We're still live, so yeah, we can totally do that.
He didn't look like he was going to be fine. He looked like it really hurt. Like,
I didn't see it.
Listen, if he gets up and he plays another snap, we're back on. But
okay.
Yeah, we'll put it half easy.
We'll call that the insurance. We'll call that the insurance bet. We hit the insurance on underdog.
Gets up.
Yeah.
We'll call that a Gladys to risk.
Anyway, Dan, you're goosing last week, and you got one right the week before. It's kind of made it so that Gladys and I have almost caught up to you. You're at 21-17-4. I'm 21-18-3. So I'm only a half game behind you, and Gladys at 19-20-3.
Mate, I fell off the face of the earth for about 2-3 weeks, and I'm about to fall off even more in a week's time. So I need a bit of luck this week, to be honest with you.
Hey, Dan, where did you see that Mike Leach has died? I haven't seen it anywhere.
Yeah, I saw it about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, sorry, folks. Apparently, Mike Leach may have died, so sorry.
Yeah.
He has?
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that's what Dan shared. Like, I haven't seen anything. I've been here with you guys.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Bam's also seen the same thing. Kyler's done weird injury. That's never a good sign, right, Doc? Oh, it's a weird injury, right? Like, you're never going to think that's a good thing.
You never want to hear
that. That's some weird shit. I
guess Kenneth Walker was in a weird injury.
19 minutes ago.
I guess weird.
Seriously, 19 minutes ago, there was a coach that came out saying, "Rest in peace," and now they're saying he's all right.
So you got
I've seen that happen before. You know,
Bill Snyder came out and said, "Rest in peace."
When I was in residency, I wasn't working at a great hospital, so this guy came in and he was pronounced dead. But then they transferred him to a better hospital, and his condition was upgraded to alive.
You're so weird.
Damn machine non-contact.
I love Doc. Oh, and they're carting him off. Yeah.
Unbelievable. What is wrong with people? Why would they say that?
Oh shit! Who's the number 2? Oh,
Colt McCoy.
Colt McCoy.
Fuck. Oh, sorry.
Luckily, again, every league I have Tyler in, I've got Colt
Why
McCoy.
worry about
So
it now, Gladys?
Exactly.
Week 14. I think we've established that we don't follow FCC guidelines on this show.
All right, so I need to pick up Colt McCoy in my league that I don't have a quarterback. But
I guess I just want to shout out Scott Fishbowl. I'm probably about to be eliminated, so it was a nice run. Got through the playoffs, but yeah, bleep you Tua again. It's funny how again you mentioned the Scott Fishbowl scoring, Doc, and incompletions and low completion percentage, they punish you poorly, and Tua doing amazing. And then these last 2 weeks have just been awful with his completion percentage, and they kept mentioning it the entire time on the broadcast Sunday night just to dig it in. Oh yeah, this used to be the guy with the highest completion rate. Now he sucks. Now it's awful. Oh, look at that, another incompletion for Tua. Oh, look at that. Yeah, so yeah.
I don't know what I'm looking like in Scott Fishbowl, but you got to think about like Tua and Derek Carr had to have done in so many teams in the Scott Fishbowl this week, or they're going to put them like right up against it. So I think a lot of teams that get eliminated this week are going to have one or both of those guys. It's really rough.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'd imagine that. I know the cutoff was you have to make the top 1,000 to get past this week, and I was outside the top 1,000, so I knew I needed ground to make up anyway. I knew I needed to have a good week just to get above that cut line, and yeah, looks like I'm going to probably fall even further. Although I think was it 1,080 to 1,200 isn't that much of a fall, but yeah, I started the playoffs 3 weeks ago, 125th, and yeah, I've just tumbled 3 weeks in a row, and that's it. Probably, I think, and we'll see with the official results. But yeah, I think there's a couple of other teams in the Letterkenny division that are still riding strong there. But yeah, if you want to, this is a great. I was lucky that my division actually had a shirt this year. That hasn't happened before, so definitely have to buy it. But yeah, if you want to purchase all that great shirt apparel I'm wearing, ViridianGlobal.com, or you can get the Going for Two specific store at goingfor2.com/store. But all the same. Thanks Viridian Global for that. Thanks Underdog as our sponsor sponsoring the show on the sponsored content sponsor hour and 15. Use the promo code GF2 double deposit batch up to $100 and join the goingfor2.com Discord. And yeah, you're right, Dan. We should talk about the book. Doc's injury book. I recently reread chapter 8 because I love it so much. Injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. Written by the great and talented Dr. James Ferretti at TFS Doc, the fantasy sports doc on Twitter. So definitely, check him out on Twitter if you do want to get a copy of the book. He's got it. Oh yeah, I was gonna hide the logo, Gladys, but you did well there. You got this.
Thank you very much, guys. I don't know if this whole thing has been a fever dream or if this was real, but this was a lot of fun. We got through a lot of stuff. So a lot of injuries. I'm getting ready to go take some more cold medicine and then pass out under a blanket with some hot tea.
I think you should pass out under a blanket, Doc.
And
take a nap.
We're pro passing out under blanket.
It's playoff time, so good luck to everybody. As we're coming down the stretch here, and
some of Gladys's incense, man. Get some of that incense in here.
We'll be here for you next week. We're not going to have the Fab Four though. We're missing somebody next week, right?
Yeah, Dan won't be here.
This guy, sledding with dogs.
Yeah, I think, Dan, you're going to be gone until our finale on January 2nd, correct?
I'll be gone for a week. Yeah, we'll be gone. We'll be out in the Swiss Alps somewhere, my friend.
Oh, nice.
Down to the Swiss Alps.
Jesus.
Sledding some
right?
dogs. Yeah.
This guy, an aristocrat.
Well, he'll be a jet lag John, that's for sure.
That's what I'm saying. That last trip, I didn't need that last trip. But this trip, I'm about that life. Hot chocolate, some fondue, a hot tub somewhere, some dogs sledding about. No dramas, my friends. I've got it covered. Don't worry.
Well, you have a great time. Travel safely.
Dan, who's never snowboarded before, going down the mountain. That's what we're doing.
You're going to snowboard?
We're going to try. We're going to give it a go.
Oh, my God.
I could be week to week in a week. So we'll see.
I've got a new nickname for you, Snowboard Sucker.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Hopefully
Doc, feel better.
Any medical imaging for you when you get back. So
Doc, go lay down.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Snowboarding stand. All right,
go lay down, Doc.
So yeah,
go
lay
down, Doc.
Discord Dan promo is at the B League said. Gladys is at Gladys L Tyler. I'm at Center says again. Doc's at TFS Doc, and this was another episode of the 2-Point Conversion Monday Night Pregame Show. We'll be back next week for Week 15. Bye for now.
Bye.